Okay, everybody, what's up? It's Kyle with another episode of Hillsborough and Hunterdon REAL. It's been a little over a month, took a little hiatus from this, so I thought for the first show back, it would be good to have my good friend Action Jackson on. So, Tyrone Jackson, thanks for being with me today, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Now, before we get into it, I just kind of give everybody, I know you're like the mayor, you know most people anyhow, but in case they don't know you, just tell them where you live. Tell us a little bit about your family, what you're doing for your career, and then we'll dive into some questions.
Okay. Um, I live in Hillsborough, New Jersey. Have two boys, 15 and 12. One will be 13 this month. And then my wife, Kelly. My mother-in-law moved in with us as well. So we have a full house with two dogs. Um, I am in law enforcement. I'm a detective sergeant with less than 2 years to go until I'm eligible for retirement, which is coming soon. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much it.
Cool, man. So, yeah, I first met you, I think it was 2016, roughly in that ballpark. Become very good friends since then.
Yeah,
And uh, this year, you invited me to go do Mount Washington along with a couple other guys, Sugar Shane, Nathan, and Steve.
sure.
But um, that's going to be the basis of what I want to talk about. But I think it's good to kind of set the foundation. So you're very athletic. You're quite the athlete. What sports did you play growing up? Like, what were you involved with?
So growing up, I played football, baseball, um, were my two major sports growing up since I was 8 years old. And then once I got into high school, I went into track because when I played football, I was a running back, so I was fast. So I went into track. So then I ran track, football, and then as it progressed, I got into so many other things. I started skiing with the boys, and they have a blast because they snowboard. And then I went into dirt biking. So wanting to do a little motocross. So I started. I have a YZ 450. So we go wherever we can, try to hit some tracks, and we go into some of that as well. But I can do that with the family, with the boys at least as well. And then I got into hiking. I got into hiking a while ago. Just like to go out there. The Sourlands, I know we hiked. I hike a lot with my wife Kelly and the boys sometimes. And I tell you, I do so many things. It's crazy. I go back and forth. And I tell them one thing is I forgot to mention. Kelly and I, when we first met, my wife and I met her at the gym. She was a spin instructor. And so somebody at the gym challenged me to take her class because it was an advanced spin class. And of course, I like a challenge, so I went and took it. And it was a challenge. I tell you, my legs were melting down when I was by the end of the class. So after that, I started taking her class all the time, and realized she liked to. Our first date was bike New York. We went on a mountain bike and stuff like that, and did bike New York. After that, we started dating, and then we started doing a lot of mountain biking, and that was great. We were mountain bike all over the place, and just getting into to me, just getting into my point is just getting into a lot of different sports, challenging yourself is what I really enjoy doing. Just doing something that you're not normally used to just challenge your body, challenge your mind.
Yeah, and you certainly do that. And I think it was 2 years ago. I know. So the seed that was planted with Mount Washington. When did that first come, and what is the longer term goal with that? Like, so let me explain first, people. Mount Washington, if you don't know, it's the highest point on the East Coast, but was 6,200 feet in that range. It's like you're on another planet. It's kind of unique, very unique for the East Coast. So it's not a hike. It's like you're it's like mountaineering. But you first told me a couple of years ago you were going to do that. What made you decide to want to do that a couple of years ago? And like, what was your thought process?
Okay, so let me start it this way. Several years ago, I don't know how I got into this, but I started. watching stuff on just the highest mountain in the world, which was Mount Everest. And I started watching little documentaries, and then there was this book called Into Thin Air, and that was written by this author John Krakauer, and it he goes over the tragic incident that happened in 1996 on a mountain where two different expeditions got caught in a storm and 8 people died. And two of the very well-known guides, it was Rob Hall and John Fisher. They both died on the mountain. Very, very respected mountaineers. And so since then, I was very intrigued about mountaineering, about climbing Mount Everest, and what it took to get there. So, if you ask me anything about Mount Everest, almost I know. You know how to fly in a Kathmandu, little plane over Lukla, and then a 7 mile trek to Everest Base Camp. And so that's really intrigued me. And I said, well, in order for me to try to accomplish that, to try to summit Mount Everest, I have to take baby steps. And the way to do that is to climb to a small mountain, see what it's like. So before I set my sights, I looked around and I saw Mount Washington, 6,200, a little over 6,200 feet, mountaineering. But I still didn't have anything. I didn't know how to go about it. You know what to do. So I looked at this company REI, which is a big retail store of outdoor apparel and equipment, all for all outdoor sports. So you name it, they have it. Mountaineering, rock climbing, mountain biking, skiing, snowboarding, they have it. So, but they also have adventures. So I went out and I signed up for a class of Mountaineering 101, and that was up in Yonkers, New York. It was a little odd because of the fact that when I went, it actually they taught you what about mountaineering was. Um, they taught you the layering system, which I'll get into, and they taught you how to tie knots and stuff like that. So they gave us the equipment. I'm thinking it's going to snow. It's going to be on the side of a mountain. It was about 40 degrees out, no snow on the ground, and I got crampons on. And for those that don't know what crampons are, they're spikes about 1.5 inches long that go on the bottom of your shoes in order to walk on ice and hard snow. And that's what mountaineers, when you're going up mountains, that's what you have to wear on certain terrain. So we took those, and it was tough because we're in just leaves. We're not on the terrain that we should have been. So it was a little difficult, but the explanation was good. And so after, my takeaway from that was, all right, this is what I need. This is what it's gonna take to climb these type of mountains. So then, so after that, then I researched Mount Washington, and of course, the best thing that we have today is YouTube. So what did I do? I went on YouTube documentaries and just looked at what it took to climb Mount Washington. So then that's when in 2019, I went to East Mountain Sports Adventure Store in North Conway, and I just did it. I just signed up by myself, just signed up and said, you know what, I want to climb Mount Washington. So then in 2019, I go up to Mount Washington, not knowing much. They said, you know, I monitor the weather. I monitor the weather about 30 days before, and kind of nervous because at the top I was seeing temperatures -20 degrees, and I was seeing winds and wind speeds up to 60, 80 miles an hour. So it was a little nerve wracking. So I was like, man, I remember out the layering system that the guy told me. So I'm going out trying to buy stuff, going, you know, and it can get expensive. Um, so I went out and bought all the stuff I needed. But the best thing was East Mountain Sports provided you with mountaineering boots, the crampons, and an ice axe, which is mandatory going up that mountain for a very low price, which I was surprised at. So when I signed up, I went out there. It was a 6-hour trek to North Conway, and the morning of, I I went out to the school, and they provided me with mountaineering boots, the crampons, and the ice axe. They explained the layering system, and that day was the warmest day of the year. And all the days before, you know, being nervous, on the day of my ascent, it was 40 degrees. So I had all these different layers. And the good thing is the guides were saying, well, today you're not going to need this layer. Today you're not going to need that layer. So I started with my base layer on, right? And I had 3 liters of water. That's it, 3 liters of water. And I had food. So as we started to trek up to Mount Washington, we went on this one trail that's known as the Lion's Head Trail. And so as we're trekking up it, I'm sweating. I'm like sweating profusely. So I have my base layer on, which was merino wool. So a quarter zipper, I zipper it down, and I'm sweating. We stopped for a break. I'm like, man, this is crazy. And we were going pretty good. You know, there were two different groups. I was with the fast group. There was a slower group, and we kept going. And the next stop was above tree line. We get above tree line, which I skipped over that part. We'll get to when we went up there.
Yeah.
Once we went above tree line, I was good. So we ate again, you know, checked because once you go above tree line, the wind picks up. So once we go above tree line, now I'm like, all right, I threw one more layer on, you know, my mid layer, and that was it. Just because it was just a little windy, but nothing crazy because I was sweating. I felt like, you know what, let me just put something else warm to keep warm. You know, I didn't want to get really cold just in case it got colder. So as we kept going, then suddenly something started to happen in my body, and I felt this cramping go on. And I didn't know, I was like, I didn't understand. I was drinking water, you know, I know I was sweating, but I was like, I had all the water. I thought I had enough water. So as I keep going, my body, I keep start cramping up even more, my lower half. And it started becoming it became harder to continue to go, to walk in the crampons as we kept going up the mountain. Now they give you only 5 hours to summit. They give you at 1 o'clock. So we start at 8 a.m. and they give you till 1 because you still have to, they give you 5 hours because you still have to go down. And it takes 3.5 hours to get down the mountain. So I got all the way to this one point. I think I was about 900 vertical feet from the summit. And my guide said, that's it, got to turn around. He saw how I was moving really slow. And so I had to turn around. That was it. I was like, you know what? I listened to you. Got to turn around. And you know, from that, I listened to it because seeing all the documentaries of Mount Everest, people who didn't turn around died on top of the mountain. You know, even though this is 6,000 feet, something could happen. You know, and then you have to have a rescue. So I turned around. You know, I said there's going to be another day, and so I turned around until this year.
To this year, and then you missed 2020 because of COVID, right? All that stuff
Yes.
canceled. So you started this journey because Mount Everest is, and we're going to keep going over that in a little bit. You know, the longer term objective. But this year you invited a bunch of us, but there wound up being 5 of us that went up. You know, in total. And we went up March. It was, I think we climbed March 21st, something like that. 20th.
Yeah,
Came
March
back
20th.
on the 21st. So we had great conditions again. So going into this time, I knew your goal was I got to complete this task. I got to complete this mission this time. So what did you do differently going into this one? Was it a mindset thing? Like what was different? Because you did succeed this time. We'll go over that story when you, Nathan, and Shane kind of took off and went. But what was different about this time mentally going into it?
So there was a couple things, and this was some things I learned from you and your staff at Newell Strength, and it's about nutrition, and it was about the juice with the salt water, and also just having a different mindset, and that's why I kind of like chose uh, the I invited people that had the same type of mindset as I. Um, and it was great. It was really intriguing to select who I did because when you look at it, you know, when you look at it, I saw people who had this positive mindset, this determination, and I knew that with all of us together, we can accomplish our goals. So what I did this time differently was I prepared by training a little different. And when I said training, besides hiking, we hiked a lot. Nathan was one of them. We went Mount Kushnatunk or something like that, out
Yeah.
in Reddington, and it was a great training, hiking a mountain over a mount. No, what is it called? Round Valley, section of Round Valley, and we went up this ascent, and it was steep, and we were going, and it was good because we went at a good clip. The main thing was not to stop when we got up to the top, in the middle of it. So we go all the way up. Once we crest the hill, we went down the other side to Ron Valley, the lake,
Yeah.
and then we took, we had a little drink, and then we went right back up. So our heart was continuing to go, and then we would climb the ridge. We would go to ridge line all the way through, and every time we did it, our time would decrease, and then we ended up doing the last one right before our last hike training. We did, I think it was 5 miles, and we did it in an hour and change. It
Wow.
was it was it was sick how quick we did that. I mean, we were moving, and besides that, I was running 3 miles once a week, and I'm not a runner. And for me to run 3 miles, I only ran 3 miles one other time. And I think it was when you had that little thing at the gym. It was
Yeah. Okay.
as an
Yeah.
obstacle course, yeah. And that was the only 3 mile I ever ran. And this time I had a trek around my house. I would run once a week. And then, I started out with 36 minutes. Then the second time dropped down to 33 minutes, down to 31 minutes. Um, so my conditioning was a lot different during that time because I decided to do something unorthodox that I wasn't used to up my training for this. And then the salt intake, and then knowing that, that was what depleted me because I didn't have the sodium. As I was sweating, I wasn't putting it back in. And then that's what caused me my lower body to cramp, and I couldn't make it this time. So I think that's what changed, and that's the mindset I had, going into this climb.
Yeah. Yeah. And I knew you were determined you were going to get it no matter what. And besides, I mean, Nathan had some experience, probably the most out of the group besides you. But we didn't really know too much. We watched videos and all that. So the group kind of broke off into two, kind of like you said, your other group. So it was me and Steve, because I was way behind, but me and Steve and Dylan, and then you three were with your guide, and you guys made it up pretty quick to the above the tree line. So when you got above the tree line, you made good time. What were the conditions like up there at that point? Like you break tree line, what's the next thing?
So once you break tree line, that's where you stop. That's where you have to assess, and that's where our guide assessed and said, okay, put on a different layer because again, we left in really good conditions. Some people would ask what conditions were they? Well, it was like 20 something degrees out at base, and so as you're climbing, it'll get a little colder. But those are great conditions at 20 something degrees. I think it was like 21 or 27 degrees when we were hiking. So it was great because it taught us the layering. So we had a base layer on first, so you're not sweating as much. And as we kept continuing up the mountain, we might put another layer on just in case. When we stopped at the mountain head, at the lion's head, when we tied in, when we put our crampons on, that's when we were starting our really steep ascent.
Yeah.
And that's where it was time to either, we put our crampons on and we had our ice axes out because we put away our trekking poles. And once we started that, that's when, it was good because I wasn't sweating as much, going up those steep ascents. And they taught us about how to walk in the crampons as well. And I think sometimes and that I learned from last year, that's what saps a lot of your energy. It's not walking properly with the crampons on. So first timers, it's a little difficult. And when we were up at tree line and I saw Steve coming up and I saw how he was walking, I was like, man, if he was walking like that a lot of times all the way up the steep parts, he's going to be spent because that's a lot of energy he was utilizing. And so once we hit tree line, we were there for about 20 minutes. The wind was picking up, it picked up. And anytime you stop, you put like a big jacket, like a big overcoat on just to keep you warm while you're stopped. You're not moving, just to keep the heat in. And so we were there for a good, 20 minutes. We were nervous because we were looking for you and And Steve came up before, and you still weren't there. And then once you came up, and I took a look at you, you had this look on your face, and I saw it. I'll never forget. And I was like, oh man, what? You look really spent. I mean, you were like exhausted. I could tell, and you were like, you even said you're like mentally spent. I was like, wow. So, and that's when, you know, the two guides were like, okay, my guide was like, all right, you guys kind of like, we were trying to refuel and
Yeah.
see where you can go. And then he said, for us, for Shane and Nate and I, he's like, all right, we're gonna head up, you know, and that's what we did. We started heading up, you know, towards the summit.
Yeah. Yeah. And you guys, because you guys were, you know, on a mission to make it. Yeah. And I remember that he said, you know, you know, I was shocked mentally, man. That those three. I mean, explain those three steep parts to people. I mean, that's what really did me in. But for people, like, you're not walking up these things when you get to that point. So
Right.
explain that little portion. Not little.
Okay. So there's one very if you look at Mount Washington, ever see any documentaries, you'll see this one favorite, I guess, familiar section. One of the I guess one of the sections that has a branch that's across it. So as we're going up the steepest part, it's about 80-degree climb. So when you have your crampons on, those that don't know what crampons on, I briefly explained that there's spikes on the bottom of your shoes that you put on about 1.5 inches, but they also have two prongs that stick out the front of your the front of the crampon, so they'll be in front of your shoes. So as you're going up this steep part, and you're not connecting with the bottom, you're actually hitting. You're pointing the two prongs are going into the ice, the wall, as you're climbing, and your ice axe. Um, sorry,
No problem. No worries. I can
just
stay
got
with you.
okay. I think I'm all right.
Yeah, you good.
So the ice. So now you have to put the ice axe in the snow or the ice, and then that's how you're moving up the that section of the mountain. Is that you're digging in with the front of your crampons, walking up that wall until you get to another section. There was 3 sections almost like that. And when you look down, and you look down and there's really nothing there, you know. So some people, I can see the mindset of like, man, if I just lost something, I'm going down. And you'll tumble down. Um, and I never thought about it that way until it was a perfect picture that you sent, um, where you saw behind you. It was like a very steep drop. And I didn't think about it. I was like, wow, that's pretty steep. You know, but that's the steepest section. And then there's 2 other sections not as steep, but still is very steep
Yeah.
that you still have to get up. But the first section is very steep, and then you have to go underneath a branch that goes across. So you have your backpack on, and you have to get low enough to get underneath it, or you get stuck and it'll pull you back. And you're only cramped in, you only have the ice axe. So if you're going and you get hit, that pulls your ice axe away, and you could fall back. So I get now, you know, what people are thinking, their thought process of, man, if something happens, I could easily lose it and go right down.
Yeah. And you're not, you know, for people, for 80 degrees is almost, I mean, 90 degrees is straight up. And you're not roped in or anything. So this isn't like you're climbing like free, so, you know, not like the guy that does not the free solo stuff. He doesn't use a rope, but those, you're not roped in or nothing like that. So that part is physically taxing. It could be mentally taxing, as it was for me. But then you got up there, we caught up, you guys took off. And then I remember I was talking with Steve and our guy Dylan, and I looked at that, you know, you guys had, I don't know how much longer it was, but you went up to those boulders that kind of, you know, funneled you in. And we were watching, you guys look like little ants. And that's when me and Steve, you know, I said, I can't, man. I said, I'm shot. I can't. But when you got to that part, what was that like? So now that looked like from where I was, you go up through those 2 boulders, it looked pretty steep. And then talk about that part and then what was beyond that part.
So the part where you're talking about is the Lion's Head. So
Okay,
that's So that's so once we go above tree line, then you look up and you're like, okay, got to go over that. And at one point, you think that it kind of levels out a little bit. I'm thinking, oh, yeah, it's got to level out a little bit, but it never did. And but some people thought that we went over the Lion's Head, the boulders, but we actually cut along the side of it, around it. And once you get around it, then it flattens out, and then you go over a whole bunch of rock. And that's another thing when you're on crampons, because crampons are for ice and snow, not typically for rock. So you have to be very careful because you slip and fall. I fell 2 years ago, and my trekking pole caught me, thank goodness, and it bent. But that's how slippery it'll get. So you got to be really careful on placing your foot on rock with crampons. So we had a little rock area field that we went probably like 1,000 feet maybe, of all rock, snow, ice, and then we finally entered a snow field. But when we entered the snow field, the wind was just howling. I mean, it must have been 60 miles per hour
Yeah.
winds, and it's because it was crosswinds. So as we went through this snow field, I remember I was right behind the instructor, and he was like, Tyrone, you're doing good. Because I had the same instructor as 2019. I specially requested him again because I said, this time you're going to summit with me. So I requested him, this guy, Brendan, who our guide was. He was my guide in 2019. And I requested him because I was like, you're going to see me summit. You're going to bring me up to the mountain, up to the top. And when he said it, he goes, hey, Tyrone, he goes, man, you really trained for this. You're doing great. And he goes, but I'm going to tell Shane he's got to jump up in front. I want Shane behind me. Because I guess Shane was doing well, but he was taking his time as well. He was taking his time too. And so he pulled Shane. Shane went right in the front, and I was behind Shane. And I don't know why Shane was taking his time, because he was fine right behind him, and then after that, we got over the snowfield. Once we went through the snowfield, the wind would die down because now we're technically on the side of that mountain, so where we went, people ski across that into the Tuckerman Ravine, so it's pretty steep. I mean, it's crazy how people can ski, that way. But so we went up into this rock area where we met some snowboarders up there getting ready to come down too into that ravine. But then we kept going up. And then as soon I looked up, and again, as soon as you look up, you're like, man, it seems like it's never ending, and I just saw this rock field with snow. And I was like, wow. So I just put my head down, one foot in front of the other, and just kept going, and then suddenly we hit pavement, and then we're there. We're like, whoa. I said, this is crazy. We're here. I said, we made it. This is great. And then once we got up there, the wind was so strong at one point, one corner, I let my body weight fall to the ground, and it was keeping me up. That's how windy it was in this one corner up there, and then it's crazy to see that the chains and everything holding all the buildings down and all the equipment down, because they have all these satellites and all these instruments to read the wind speeds. That's why it's documented now. The second fastest wind speeds recorded at 233 or 34 miles per hour up there. They said somewhere just recently recorded something
Oh, really?
higher or faster. Yeah, just recently I just read. But it was great to see. It was a great experience being at the top. And then, again, on the way down, and people don't realize on the way down, I mean, now you're finally at the top, and all your anxiety is gone, and your energy is sapped. I mean, you're zapped, and you're just having it's great. It's a great feeling. But now you have to get down.
Yeah.
Now it's different. You're like, oh, now I got to get down. And getting down was tough because now your knees are taxed, and going down with crampons on, you're trying to make contact on all points. And our guy he was moving fast, and it took a long time. And when you're not used to those boots, because we get the mountaineering boots, I had blisters on my feet when I was done. Just climbing for 8 hours that we climbed for.
Yeah, it definitely beats up your feet. I mean, I remember how tender they were that night. So I want to reiterate to people, guys, the weather up there is some of the strangest, wildest weather in the world. Not just in the East Coast, but like in the world. So you get up there and that wind that Tyrone's talking about, right? Now it's another thing you got to contend with. And I know for me, that was playing uh, mental tricks further, right? You're already in a fatigue state. You did this steep climb, and now all of a sudden this wind is going, and then you see how high up you are too. And it's like, man, it takes, this is really like a mental, physical, and spiritual undertaking. It's not just physical,
So one thing I want to say on that was at one point when we came down, the the guide took us on an edge to look down Tuckerman's Ravine, right? And the wind must have been, I don't know, 60 miles an hour. So we're at the edge. Was it Shane? I forget who was it, Shane or Nate. They were kind of hanging back a little bit, because you never know. If you lose your footing and
yeah,
that wind hits you, that gust can go. It'll throw you over, you
yeah,
know. And it could be tough to just hang out. You look down and it's like, whoa,
yeah,
that was pretty interesting.
yeah. It's intense, man. And I'll tell I've driven that twice, and driving it would give me, my palms would sweat. I mean, it's we did it in the summer, but if you ever drive that, you guys can kind of get a better feel for what Tyrone's talking about here, like the gravity of this mountain. So then you got,
So
yeah, go ahead.
so as we were coming down, now let's go into the steep parts. Now we finally get, back in the tree line, and now the steep parts. So our guides brought rope to rope us down some of the steep parts. And I will tell you this, in 2019, there was a section where they tell you to kind of bear crawl down. You can have that choice, bear crawling
Yeah,
down, which is actually not bad. It's easy. Um, in 2019, I did that. I was bear crawling down with my ice axe, and I happened to slip, and I didn't have a good grip on my ice axe, and it slipped out of my hand. I went down about 15 feet, and thank goodness I slammed into a tree. And when I looked on either side, there was like a 15-foot drop on my one side, and same on the other side. I was like, oh my gosh. So I went back up because my ice axe was still stuck in the ice, and grabbed it. And ended up making it down. But this time, same thing. Ice axe, but rope. But they roped us down a couple sections, which was great.
mhm,
And we didn't have a harness where you can put your carabiner and hook onto the rope. They just taught us a different technique, just to wrap this rope around your forearm to create friction, to slow you down. And it was like you're walking down the hill. Now you're walking down like this, but you're walking. So it was weird, because you're
yeah,
looking at you're looking at the bottom, you know. So it was interesting. It was fun, And there were people that were beneath us that slowed us down because they were stuck, and I knew they were stuck mentally, and they were stuck on how to get down. And when they were going down, bear crawling backwards, they I could tell they were it was very tough for
yeah.
them, and that section is very challenging for a lot of people.
Certainly, yeah. And like you said, when you're going up, like that was part of my thinking once we got up there's, I got to get back down, so that it's this whole thing. And then you're going down that part. And you guys made, I remember because the wind was, I think, higher than they were predicting that day. I remember
Yeah.
Dylan telling me and Steve, and that's what I was like, man, I hope those guys make it. But you get concerned. You're like, okay, they're going to keep you, but the wind's going, and that okay, it's already physically taxing. You guys made really good time, I think, especially on the way down too, because you got back to the hotel probably within an hour of when we got back.
So we made it up there, and even after waiting, at the tree above tree line with you guys until you guys came, we still made it in 4.5. So
Wow.
if we didn't wait, we would have made it in about 4 hours. At least an hour under the time that was given to us.
Yeah.
Um, and and knowing that, I'm sorry, my
No problem,
thing
man.
back to Zoom. Uh, and just knowing that we had that time frame where 4 hours up, and then getting back, we did make really good time,
Yeah.
you know going down, going up and coming down,
Yeah.
especially from last 2019 trip I made.
Yeah. Certainly, man. And then We had a little party in the hot tub when you guys got back before we ate. But
Oh yeah.
it's definitely inspiring because I know that, you had your mind on doing it, and this was kind of a stepping stone for you. Um, so talk about that, right? So you did it. Now, what is I know we were talking in your truck. What's next on the horizon for you as far as this field goes?
So, again, as I said, looking in the future, wanting to attempt Mount Everest is baby steps. So what's the next mountain? So I'm looking at next year possibly with Mount Rainier up in Washington State. That's a 14,000 foot summit climb, and then you're going to have to go over some crevasses. So which would be some ladders. So sometimes there's a section that would they throw a ladder over, and then you're on your crampons, and you got to walk over that ladder. You look down into a crevasse that goes down however many a couple hundred feet. And so when you look at that, that's what you're going to see on Mount Everest. When you go through the Western Cumb, which is a Khumbu ice falls, which is a moving glacier, there are several ladders that go across these crevasses. That's the most dangerous section of Mount Everest because of the fact that there's a lot of what do you call them? Drawing a blank here. Um, Avalanches.
Oh yeah.
So when the avalanches come down, the Khumbu, and there's a big ice, I mean blocks of them, that'll come down. They have avalanches all the time, every day, and there's a lot of people in those in the Khumbu ice falls. And when those avalanches come, people have gotten wiped out right down those crevasses, never to be found again. So when they do go up those Khumbu ice falls, they do it first thing in the morning, like 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, where it's very cold. Because once it warms up, that's where the ice breaks off and avalanches start, and that's where people get hurt. So, seeing that, just walking over these ladders will remind me of this is some of the stuff that you'd have to do when you're on your trek up to the summit of Mount Everest.
So Mount Rainier would be, so you're potentially next year with that, and that's 14,000 feet. And then I remember Steve talking about his brother-in-law that was going over those ladders. I mean, that sounds wild, man. I mean, it sounds nuts. You know, but if you do that, not if, when you do that, is the next step Mount Everest after that for you, or is there something else? Is there another mountain that you?
No, again, it's still progression. Then that's only 14,000 feet. So, if I was to go to Mount Everest after only climbing 14,000 feet, people would say you're ridiculous. You're not ready because it's a 20,000 meter peak or 8,000 meter peak. That's what you need. That's a 20,000 foot is what you need or more. So then I guess the next one would be Mount Denali, Mount McKinley in Alaska.
In Alaska.
That's the highest. That's 20,000 feet. Um, and then once I do that, then it looks like that's doing that. Then I should be ready to go.
Pretty good, man. That's and it's I got a couple more questions here too, but it's you got to admire it, right? Like you get the most out of life. I know as a friend, but you're pushing. Like most people say, why? What's the point? You did it, be happy. But then you're putting yourself in these, but that's where you feel most alive, like anybody, right? When you put yourself in these situations, that's what life is. That's where you're gonna feel it, rather than just sitting on the couch watching Netflix. So you got to admire what you're doing, man, and the mission. What so what would you say? Uh, let's start with this. 5 years from now, what do you see for your life? Like, what has happened? Talk about, could be career, could be, did you already achieve Mount Everest? Like 5 years from now, what do you see?
So 5 years from now, I see my oldest son a freshman in college. So again, you always have to continue to reassess life. And you have your future goals, but you also have the reality too on what's going to be present, what could be present, and your priorities. So again, always number one is family is priority, right? Um, these little things are fun. They're challenging. You want to challenge your mind, challenge your brain, challenge just a life challenge. So do I want to? My goal, yes, would be to summit Mount Everest, but I'm not going to sacrifice my family to do that as well. If everybody's with that and stuff like that, I'm going to continue. I'm not just going to quit. I'm going to keep going and keep pushing myself to do it. 5 years from now, I could see myself already in a better position than I am now. Retired, possibly working full time with Newell Strength.
Yeah.
Doing a couple other things. Retirement life. People don't realize. I see a lot of people retired that just they work harder retired than they do when they weren't. And that's not my goal. My father always told me before he died, don't work all the way until you die. Enjoy life. Retire when you can and enjoy life. Enjoy your family. So, and that's what I tend to do. And this is on my radar to challenge myself and think out the box. And the I think the favorite saying that you say a lot, and I post it all the time, is where your attention goes, energy flows, results will follow. I think that's very important that people should listen to and just think about it. With where your attention goes, your energy is going to flow. So my attention is going to climbing. That means I got to train. That means I have to have a different thought process. So now, guess what? My energy is going to go there. I'm going to put a lot of my energy towards that, and then the results will follow. Now, how do those results follow? Well, I summited Mount Washington, so that's one. So I continue. These are the results I'm getting. Even training, my numbers are going up. As I'm running, my times are decreasing. These are the results. So when you look at these type of things, that's what my goal is. That's what my future I'm looking to do. Just to improve life, improve myself.
Yeah, right on, man. It's a great example for everybody that knows you because it starts as a thought, right? You started as a thought, and then you took out, I don't know what I'm doing, but then you figured out, a couple years ago with Mount Washington, you figure out, okay, let me go to this course in New York. Let me go to, and you just figure it out, right? So it's this thought, that's becoming a reality, which is great. How about if I asked you a favorite book, what would come to mind? Is there a book in particular throughout your life that is like, man, that was it?
Um, I tell you, Reading Into Thin Air was a great book. I loved it. It was thrilling. It was awesome. But I tell you this, as you know, on the way up to Mount Washington, we listened to Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. And that is a very powerful book. And there's so many things a lot of takeaways from that book, that I learned. Accountability mirror that he talks about, being different. Um, Recreate yourself if you need to. Don't settle. Don't worry about what other people think of you. Your mind is the most powerful thing in the world.
Yeah.
He says that. And there's a lot of things like he has a lot of motivational podcasts, and sometimes like when I was training for this, and I don't run, I would just listen to it because he would say some things that he struggled with in life, and the one thing that I remember was when he said he couldn't. It was tough for him to read this thing. He wasn't getting it. He goes, read it again, and he still wasn't getting it. He said, read it again, and then he said he still wasn't getting it. He goes, write it out, and he goes, write it out again, and then I got it. He goes, but what he had to do was continue to train himself. How to do this, how to do this. He didn't know how to swim. What did he do? Got back in the water. What did he do? Got back in the water. He finally learned how to swim.
Yeah. Yeah. But that book, it's funny because I never listened to it and then or read it, but I actually just finished it last week. So we didn't finish it all on the way up there, but it is a very powerful book. When you look at what that guy was able to do or what he's doing still, just put his mind to it. So I thought that was real appropriate that we listened to that on the way up. We began listening to that. All right, last one for you. If you were to go back and give the 20-year-old Tyrone advice, what would you tell him?
If I got the 20-year-old Tyrone, a lot of advice that I would give the 20-year-old Tyrone. Listen to your parents.
Listen to
You
you.
know, they're very, very wise. Okay. Cause right now, you know, I could see myself in them and what they were telling me at 20. You know, I just got out of high school, barely got out of high school, you know, because I'm a social butterfly, as most people know. I like to talk and I say hello to everybody. Um, but again, is applying myself. You know, finish what you start. There's a cartoon, I forget what it is, this Professor Calamitous. And he was a professor in this cartoon that he never finished anything. He would always start something but never finish anything. And that's how I did a lot of things. You know, I would say this, and it's like you say something, but you don't take the action. You go halfway, but you don't finish. You know, and when I look at that back then, it was like, you know, finish what you start. You know, if you have something, you start it, finish it. You know, that's why, you know, from what you said about writing stuff down, like I have my task list I write down every day, especially at work. I have it in front of me. You know, things to do, cross it off, keep writing it down. You know, so if you can't think of it in your mind, if you have too much things that go around in your mind all the time, you have to write it down. And it's just like, you know, when you were riding up with me at Mount Washington, and I asked you, you pulled out a journal, and I said, "What are you doing?" And you go, "I'm having a brain dump." A brain dump. He goes, "Yeah, I got too much going on. I got to put it on paper."
Yeah.
I was like, man, I go, that is awesome, you know, think about. So, um, so yeah, you know, at 20 years old, you know, what I do differently is, you know, listen to what your parents have to say. They're very wise. You know, if you start something, learn to finish it. You know, that'll make you grow mentally, you know, spiritually as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's great advice, and you're going to be coming up on that, next 5, 6, 7 years with the boys, right? When they're
Yeah,
in that 20-year-old range. So it's right on, man. And it's funny because I met you in 2012. We didn't really know it, but I remember at Lowe's, remember me and Devin were in there, so me and Tyrone we both ruptured our patellar tendons. He had done it. And I don't know what year you did it.
in 2004, yeah.
2004. So it was late night and, I was not in a good spot mentally, but I remember this store was pretty much closed. And I remember he came up and said, "Oh, you ruptured." I said, "How does he know that?" Because nobody knew, there was such a rare injury. People, "Oh, what'd you do? Your ACL, blah, blah." And then years later, 4 years later, I remember, there's this guy Tyrone stayed. Now, when I saw it, I said, "I remember you from Lowe's." It was funny how we met, and then came back
Uh,
into, our paths crossed again. But I can tell you, man, from me and from people that know you, you're a great role model. Great role model. And I
Thank
think
you.
people that are under your command at work, the guys, the girls there, if you get a chance to talk to Tyrone, just pick his brain. He's full of life. He's fun. That's the main thing. You're fun. That's a huge
Yeah,
thing because the fun leads to your, it's tied in with your energy. Right. That's the
yes, it
main thing.
is.
So any words of final wisdom you want to give people out there?
You know, the what I would say is, you know, when you set these goals, you know, and you want to achieve these goals, make sure you have a plan. You know, because and that's the reason why people don't complete their goals and they fail at their goals is because they don't have a plan to reach their goal.
Mhm.
And you start out small to accomplish those goals. All right. So once you set out a goal, have a plan. It's very important. And then that way you'll be able to achieve what you're looking for.
Yeah, right on, man. That's perfect. And I'm gonna bring this to a close, Action Jackson. Give me 1 second here.